In this video, I'm going to be doing a review of the VP9 and the VP40. So I'm going to cover a few different topics here, but this thing's been out since 2014, right? So I'm not really going to tell you anything groundbreaking or anything. The only thing I'm going to say is that, during this video, you're going to get my experience with the different features of this pistol and why I think it's like the best pistol. If you're going to have one pistol that everybody can have, it should be the VP series of pistols. If it's going to be 9mm pistols, I think it is one of the best ones. If money's not an issue, right? And you don't have any other needs, you just need a pistol for people or law enforcement. I think the VP series is like one of the best ones to get. So I do have a lot of pistols that I like, but this is one of the GOATs, I guess you could say, greatest of all time. So it's been out for over 10 years, and it's seen a very wide variety of variants. It's got the subcompact model, and recently they came out with the CC9, which is just a very miniaturized version. And you've got the VP9A1, K, and F. And you've got the ones with the red dot cutouts. You've got the B model with the button. So it's seen a lot of different variants, and HK's been very excited to answer the consumer market's requests for all these different variants. And they've had a lot of success. But it's kind of interesting that this is upgrading, and it's continuing to change. I actually want the VP9A1K. I want a Glock 19 sized VP9. That's one of the biggest things that people were critiquing, was the size of the pistol and what it was able to do versus the size that they were getting, right? So the first thing on the features that I'm going to touch on is the grip. Now, the grip isn't really anything to write home about. It's not really the grippiest texture. It's not like the ones that people want today where it's like eating into your hand or anything. It's like little macaroni patterns, right? It's a departure from the P30 where it was kind of a chaotic pattern. A little bit more organized, a little bit more pleasant to the eye when you actually get closer. It just looks like little elbow macaronis, right? So it works really well. It actually does bite the skin just a little bit. It gives enough to where it's not really going to move around in your hand. And the finger grooves, they don't bother me. I've never really seen anybody that is actually bothered by it until somebody actually brings it up and those people say, oh yeah, I want to be part of the group too. So yeah, the finger grooves bother me too. They completely prevent me from being able to shoot. I mean, I don't understand that. But anyways, as far as the grip is concerned, it is still one of the very few on the market that allows you to change side panels. Now, I feel that that's kind of a dubious, feature. I never really noticed anybody be like, I can't shoot this pistol well at all. Oh, I changed the side panel, and I've got the perfect combination now out of like 7,000 different ways that you can do it, or whatever they market it as. I only ever noticed the backstrap actually being a vital change. So anyways, the next thing is charge supports. No other pistol does this, right? So you have these simple pieces of polymer that don't really add any weight, no real size. If you wanted to carry this pistol, this isn't really going to do anything to stick out. It'll look like a darn wrinkle in your shirt. That's it. So this is ingenious. It gives you enough. Now, HK's never really been known for having serrations that, really biting in your hand. It was more of they just had slides that were relatively thick. And so you had a lot to grab onto. Plus the hostile environment finish kind of had a tacky feel to it, so you were able to grab it. But they added this little bit of assurance right there that made manipulations that much easier. And that is a game changer. That little change right there has been a game changer, and it's one of the things that I love about the pistol. You just can't miss the slide. It's really hard to manually rack the slide and miss the charge supports, right? So this is the more recent version of the charge supports where there's actually, some serrations here, and I have one from a VP40 that's a little bit older, and you can see it's just a shelf, right? So this is kind of the way it was when it first came out, a little bit more like a shelf and not so much like this. but it still worked incredibly well. They were referred to as ears, right? because that's what they kind of look like. But they work so well for how small and how simple they are. So gotta love that design. Also, the takedown on these pistols is magnificent. So a lot of law enforcement agencies do not like the fact that they have to pull the trigger because, law enforcement officers do not really get all that much training. Yes, it's a training problem of unloading the gun safely and then disassembling it without, having the gun go off on its own. So the concept here is that it forces you to have the slide locked back and to have the magazine removed. And you don't have to pull the trigger. So it's 3 different ways that it's saving you. And this is really good for everybody involved for all different training levels. So anybody from the amateur to the highly experienced person will appreciate this. So I can give somebody this and tell them to disassemble it, and I'm pretty much guaranteed that they're not going to end up having the gun go off. Because you got this little piece right in here. I'm not even sure that you're going to be able to see it. I'll have to disassemble it, but this little piece down there that is, pushed up by the magazine. And, with that pushed up, it locks this takedown lever from being able to rotate down. And actually, I'll hold it like this and insert the magazine, and you might be able to see that little lever get pushed up. Right there, you can see it starting to move. And it's not going in. I can't even insert a magazine with this down. So I can't insert the magazine all the way. This little piece is actually stopping it right there. So if I close this, and then I let this little piece get pushed up, I'm not going to be able to rotate this down because the magazine is inserted. It's terrific. You have to get the magazine out to easily rotate that down. And then you just release the slide, push it forward without pulling the trigger, and that's it. That is a beautiful, simple system. And obviously you can see that the takedown lever manipulates the trigger bar to get it out of the way so you don't have to pull the trigger in order to take it down. So this is a little piece right here that gets lifted up by the magazine and locks this piece into place. So the magazine pushes up on this and it locks this from being able to go down. Obviously when it's in the locked position, it's not going to be pushed down like my finger is right now, but you get the hint, right? So obviously the internals of the VP9 or VP40 are very different from the P30. You don't have the recoil spring that has the camming block that the barrel rides on anymore. Now it's a very traditional system. However, they do have a recoil mitigation system in here that is actually very ingenious. So if you look right here, this is what the slide actually impacts. And if you actually look a little closer, you'll see that this area doesn't even touch the camming block system. And it also has steel in it. So this is what I personally am calling this the recoil mitigation, system right there. Because this is what the slide hits, and it controls the vibration. Yes, you're still going to get muzzle flip and stuff. However, the vibration is the killer for a lot of pistols because what it's doing is it's hitting the cam block and it's just vibrating throughout the entire pistol, and it's causing more damage to things than necessary. Whereas you have a steel insert here that's kind of acting like the sacrificial piece, and this is a very rigid frame. There's really good amounts of steel in this to reinforce these areas, but it's not allowing, the rearward movement of the slide to actually cause a lot of vibration through the frame. Also, this camming block, how it's pushed back by the barrel, you have this little piece of polymer here that's kind of preventing it from, walking back and forth and getting that vibration where it's kind of getting messed with, and this cross pin isn't going to get a lot of stress from it either. So there's just a lot of durable things. There's a lot of things here that just make this a very durable system. And this is a very chunky chassis, or not chassis, but camming block system. So it's just made incredibly well. Also, this is an entire insert right here that can be replaced, the ejector and everything. This is an insert. So this is kind of their introduction to the concept of a chassis system, but there's just a lot of tiny moving parts in here to make everything work. Also, your rebound spring for your trigger is this braided spring down here on the side. So I'm not sure you'll be able to see that, but that is like your trigger return spring assist. That's like your second trigger return spring that helps here. So yeah, this is just a really fantastic design. So next is the barrel. Now I know HK has been making really good barrels, since the start. And, the USP was revolutionary for being tested, like the Mark 23 for squib loads and stuff, and this is made in the exact same way. I just love the fact that they test their barrels and they have a standard for how they're going to be made. High quality steels and stuff. It's going to cost a good amount of money, and it does get pushed on to us, but they're made to where if there is a squib load and you do detonate, or not detonate, but you shoot off a round in here into a squib, it will leave the barrel, it will bulge, but it will not cause a catastrophic kaboom like the Glocks get, where it's going to shoot back at the shooter and just destroy the pistol. They'll be able to actually file the barrel down, worst case scenario, and still get you to be able to, hit and use what is remaining of the rifling to get the pistol perform. That is excellent. And that's something that you don't really see all that much these days. So the last thing I'll touch on is the trigger system as far as features. So the trigger for this is not really anything, it's obviously nothing new for a lot of people. You understand that the VP9 has a striker-fired trigger. The one thing that makes this different from a lot of others is you don't have to pull the trigger all the way back to the rear to get it to go off. It doesn't touch the grip in order to go off, unlike a lot of different pistols. Even their P30, when you pull it back, it touches the grip almost. It goes back all the way. Even when it's on single action, has a little bit of slop, goes back all the way. There's not much room left. For this, you don't have to pull it back all the way in order for it to go off. There's a couple things happening here. Number one, you have a relatively wide trigger, which allows you to, put a lot of pressure on a wider surface, allowing the trigger to feel a little bit lighter than it really is. The second thing is, when you don't have to pull back all that far, you lessen the amount of sympathetic movement in these other three fingers that are gripping the pistol. And that is vital to being able to shoot accurately and quickly. So that's just amazing that, they were kind of seeing that a long time ago. And that's what a lot of companies have not really carried over. There's not that many companies that have figured out that you don't need to have the trigger moving all the way back to the grip. In order to actually get people to perform better, you actually need to do the opposite. You need to keep them away from the grip, shorten the amount of movement here, and make it to where it is a relatively short travel. So it is a very crisp trigger. And I never really noticed that the trigger was, changing in a bad way. I never had light primer strikes, and I put thousands of rounds through the first VP9 I had. I dry fired the heck out of it with snap caps, never had a firing pin break. And the thing has just been a workhorse. And that's the reason why I had to get the VP series again, and I intend to get more. They are great pistols, and everybody can appreciate them, whether it's in a law enforcement capacity or a private citizen, self-defense capacity. With all the different variants, there's a pistol for everybody, and I think that's really the future of HK. I don't know if they're going to be getting any more military or law enforcement contracts, because it seems like they're really relying on the U.S. sales in order to kind of keep them afloat for now. But we'll see what their future holds, because they do have, their rifles and such, but specifically their pistols, I don't know if they're really going to be having pistols being in a competitive capacity for law enforcement in the near future. But I don't have a crystal ball, but we'll just see how it goes. But I'd like to see more agencies adopt the VP series of pistols. I think that they could do a lot of good with this pistol. It's durable, reliable, shootable, and there are some aftermarket accessories for it, and I think it's just a good option all around. But let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and you guys have a good one.